St. Mary's Lighthouse is on the tiny St. Mary's, or Bate, Island, just north of Whitley Bay on the coast of northeast England. The small rocky tidal island is linked to the mainland by a short concrete causeway which is submerged at high tide. St. Mary's Island was originally called Bates Island, Hartley Bates, or Bates Hill as it was originally owned by the Bates family who were prominent locally, and the area of coastal mainland lying between the Briardean Burn and Seaton Burn formed the township of Hartley. It is sometimes known as Bate Island, probably due to a misunderstanding of the meaning of the name. The island is opposite Curry's Point on the mainland and is connected to the coast at low tide by a rocky causeway for about 16 hours a day. The main feature of the island is St. Mary's Lighthouse, which was built in 1898. In medieval times there was a chapel on the island dedicated to St. Helen. Within the chapel was the Lady Light, also known as St. Catherine's Light. The light was later, wrongly, ascribed to St. Mary, and, as a result, the island became known as St. Mary's Island. It is debatable whether the light was used as a warning to shipping or was purely religious. Next to the chapel was a burial ground where monks and local people were interred. Traces of St. Helen's Chapel were destroyed when the lighthouse was built in 1898. During the 19th century there was an inn, known as the Square and Compass, on the island, run by a Mr. George Ewan. In 1895, after complaints about rowdy customers trespassing on nearby land, the landlord, Lord Hastings, had Mr. Ewan and his family evicted from the island. The lighthouse and adjacent keepers' cottages were built in 1898 by the John Miller Company of Tynemouth, using 645 blocks of stone and 750,000 bricks. It was built on the site of an 11th-century monastic chapel, whose monks maintained a lantern on the tower to warn passing ships of the danger of the rocks. A first-order bivalve rotating optic was installed by Barbey and Bennard of Paris, similar to the one they had provided the previous year for Lundy North Lighthouse. It displayed a group flashing characteristic, flashing twice every 20 seconds. The lamp was powered by paraffin, and was not electrified until 1977. St. Mary's was by then the last Trinity House lighthouse lit by oil. As part of the electrification process, the fine first-order Fresnel lens was removed by Trinity House. It was later put on display in their National Lighthouse Museum in Penzance. Its place in the tower was taken by a 4-tier revolving sealed beam lamp array, manufactured by Pharos Marine. It was powered by two 12-volt batteries, charged from the mains electricity supply. The iconic Art Deco-style cafe at Duke's Walk by the North Promenade was built in June 1930 by Whitley Bay and District Council, and originally called Garden Restaurant. It was refurbished and renamed as the Rendezvous Café in 1957 when the Arnone family took ownership. The Spanish City is a dining and leisure centre in Whitley Bay, a seaside town in North Tyneside, Tyne and Wear, England. Erected as a smaller version of Blackpool's Pleasure Beach, it opened in 1910 as a concert hall, restaurant, roof garden, and tea room. A ballroom was added in 1920 and later a permanent funfair. Located near the seafront, the Spanish City has a 180-foot-long, 54.8 m. Renaissance-style frontage and became known for its distinctive dome, now a Grade II listed building. There are towers on either side of the entrance, each of which carries a half-life-size female bacchanalian figure in copper, one holding cymbals, the other a tambourine. The building's architects were Robert Burns Dick, Charles T. Marshall and James Cackett. The band Dire Straits mentioned the Spanish City in their 1980 single, Tunnel of Love, which from then on was played every morning when it opened. By the late 1990s the building had fallen into disrepair, and in the early 2000s it was closed to the public. A regeneration project was announced in 2011. The building reopened as a dining and leisure center at the end of July 2018. In 1909 the Whitley Pleasure Gardens Company Limited was formed and established a large fairground. The funfair was extremely popular, with fairground rides and amusements, including a corkscrew roller coaster which was at Flaming Island in Yorkshire from 1983 to 2011, then at Luna Park in France Ghost Train and Waltzers, The House That Jack Built, The Joy Wheel, The Social Whirl, The Great Aerial Flight, The Virginia Reel, Hall of Laughter and The Fun House. A ride named Ye Old Mill featured floating boats which traveled through a tunnel with scenery such as a Swiss valley, an Indian jungle and a fairy castle. From 1909 to 1974 a figure-8 railway could be found at the fairground. In June of 1914 a new ride, named the Rainbow Pleasure Wheel joined the fair. It was imported from the United States reaching top speeds of around 40 miles per hour. With the rise of Whitley Bay and Cullercoats as seaside resorts, the popularity of sea swimming grew. There were, however, a number of fatalities, and the need for a safe swimming pool was clear. Table Rocks was a natural, 20 feet by 11 feet, tidal pool. On July 27, 1894, W. Scott applied to the council for permission to make a swimming pool at Table Rock, and the Whitley Seaside Chronicle noted that it was to be ready in 12 months. Charles Henry Megson Robson, a solicitor, of Edwards Road, later claimed to have been behind the scheme. He had paid £200 of his own money and raised £28 by public subscription. The council was asked to extend the pool in 1896, but refused on the grounds of cost. In 1909, however, the council did decide to include the project in the Rockcliffe Promenade improvements, and the pool was extended to 70 feet, its current size, by blasting. In 1912, a hut was built to provide changing facilities, but was lost 4 years later in gales. Steps were cut down to the pool, and a rope rail was fastened to the sides with metal rings that can still be seen today. Cullercoats is a sandy bay enclosed by small piers, and as such is ideal for families. The village has been popular with generations of visitors, with its secluded bay the highlight. The beach has a seaside award and is ideal for bathing. The south of the bay is used as a launch site for recreational crafts. Cullercoats had a thriving fishing industry in the 1800s, and small fishing boats, cobles, can still be seen in and around the bay today. Dove Marine Laboratory, on the bay itself, is an important research centre for Newcastle University's School of Marine Science. The Victorian RNLI lifeboat station is still active today. At the top of the north bank is Cullercoats Watch House. In the 19th century, Cullercoats developed a reputation as a popular artists' colony, with the everyday lives of the fishing folk often used as subjects. The famous American artist Winslow Homer spent 18 months living and working in Cullercoats. 2 interpretation panels on the seafront, overlooking the bay and further to the north, just after the watch house, explain the fascinating art history of Cullercoats. Cullercoats is the perfect place to stop for some refreshments, especially if you are enjoying the coastal walk between Tynemouth and Whitley Bay. You are spoiled for choice with fish and chips, a pub lunch, a coffee and cake, or an ice cream, all on the menu. Tynemouth Outdoor Swimming Pool was first opened on May 30, 1925 and was once one of the area's favorite and most prestigious attractions. It was automatically filled by the incoming tide and was for many years a popular venue for local families and holiday makers. In 1991 the pool was decommissioned as a result of declining usage and increasing maintenance and staffing costs. In 1996, an attempt to reuse the pool and integrate it more into its natural surroundings, rocks and boulders were put into the pool to try and create an artificial rock pool. North Tyneside Council. However, the anticipated marine life never flourished and many residents feel the modifications failed to integrate into the surroundings, and funds are being raised to restore the pool. Tynemouth Castle is located on a rocky headland, known as Pen Bal Crag, overlooking Tynemouth Pier. The moat castle towers, gatehouse, and keep are combined with the ruins of the Benedictine Priory where early kings of Northumbria were buried. The coat of arms of the town of Tynemouth still includes 3 crowns commemorating the tradition that the priory had been the burial place for 3 kings. Little is known of the early history of the site. Some Roman stones have been found there, but there is no definite evidence that it was occupied by the Romans. The priory was founded early in the 7th century, perhaps by Edwin of Northumbria. In 651 Oswin, king of Dara, was murdered by the soldiers of King Oswio of Bernicia, and subsequently his body was brought to Tynemouth for burial. He became Saint Oswin and his burial place became a shrine visited by pilgrims. He was the first of the 3 kings buried at Tynemouth. In 792 Osred II, who had been king of Northumbria from 789 to 790 and then deposed, was murdered. He also was buried at Tynemouth Priory. Osred was the second of the 3 kings buried at Tynemouth. The third king to be buried at Tynemouth was Malcolm III, King of Scotland, who was killed at the Battle of Alnwick in 1093. This is the same Malcolm who appears in Shakespeare's Macbeth. The king's body was sent north for reburial, in the reign of his son Alexander I, at Dunfermline Abbey, or possibly Iona. Built to shelter the mouth of the Tyne from the full force of the sea and prevent shipwrecks, the Tyne's 2 piers, Tynemouth Pier on the north bank and South Shields, on the south bank, are familiar landmarks. For over 100 years, the piers have protected the River Tyne, extending 899 meters from Tynemouth Priory and 1,570 meters from South Shields. The first foundations of Tynemouth Pier were laid in 1854, using 3,000 tons of stone in what was one of the most difficult construction projects of its kind at the time. The pier was completed in 1895 but, just 2 years later, was almost completely destroyed by a huge storm that left the lighthouse completely separated from the land. In 1909 it was rebuilt by John Wolfberry, most celebrated for his world-famous design and construction of the Tower Bridge in London. The Port of Tyne remains the custodian of both heritage sites and carries out regular inspections and maintenance work to ensure the piers are well maintained.